Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Eric Westman, and it's my pleasure to be with you, either live or on the taped version. I'd like to talk in this session about what you need to know. You know, it's changed since the last time I gave this, and that's an important thing to know about when you talk to people and learn from people. What was taught and the idea of what keto was just a year ago or 2 years ago has changed dramatically. So what I'd like to talk about is actually doing keto can be simple. I'll outline a simple method to do it, what I've been using for 20 years. You need to know what keto does. You need to know that it does much more than help you lose weight, become a fat burner. You also need to know the rules of safe use. There are some boundaries or guardrails if you're on medication. You want to be careful about that. And then there's a big difference between internet keto and evidence-based keto. I'll get into that a little bit. And then I want to end on the fears and the myths, and the same myths I've heard for 20 years, end up on that. Hello, everyone. Thanks for chiming in. I hope to get to the questions as well. So if you can put in all caps question with a question, that'll help me find it during the program. So for those of you who don't know who I am an associate professor of medicine at Duke University. I'm doing this on behalf of Adapt Your Life, a company that I started with Glenn and Yale Finkel from South Africa. And our mission is to get the keto, low-carb, high-fat information to as many people as possible as we can in a safe and effective manner. But I got into this because two of my patients were doing this kind of strange diet that I was unfamiliar with, and they lost 50 pounds each. And I asked them what they did, and one fellow said, all I did was eat steak and eggs. And he looked at me like, to scare me. And, I thought this can't be good. And of course, for me, this was 1998. So it was 23 years ago. But I was curious because these two gentlemen in my clinic lost over 50 pounds each. So that was pretty unusual, and still is today in a clinic for medicine, to have people just lose weight on their own, unless you're doing something like a keto diet. So I was curious, and I learned about from books, and went back to my office in the clinic, and another gentleman came in having lost all this weight on what was called the Atkins diet. And I said, this can't be good for you. But he asked me, why isn't it good? What are you concerned about? He felt good, had lost all this weight. And I said, your cholesterol is going to go up. And he looked at me and said, well, why don't you check it? So I was working at the public, Veterans Hospital, VA hospital in Durham, and it was no big deal to check a blood test. The laboratory was right down the hall, still is today. The same clinic setup is there today, 20 years later. And his cholesterol went down. And, it went against every prediction. And so, over the last 20 years, all I can say is that the people who said you were going to do terrible and die, the end of the world was going to come and you're going to fall off, it hasn't happened yet. And in fact, everyone's thriving, doing really well, almost everyone. So I got into this out of curiosity. I didn't, there are plenty of other doctors today who will tell you their massive weight loss story, which is fantastic. In fact, Gary Taubes wrote a new book called The Case for Keto, and Gary chronicled, he talked about 150 people, doctors, dietitians who use a keto diet. This came out just this year, The Case for Keto. Of course, Gary's books are very important, influential for me. The first one Gary wrote, Taubes, was Good Calories, Bad Calories, which really told the story of how we got into this mess of the low-fat diet, and how there really wasn't any science to back it up. The more and more doctors are doing this. Many of them have lost 100 pounds on their own, going against everything they've been taught and the guidelines. And so we've come a long way since those first two patients that I saw. And, I checked the cholesterol and I was worried about it. And that's what I'm going to end up today on is the myths and fears, and the last remaining one is the cholesterol. I'll get into that a little bit. But probably the most remarkable thing, shifting gears now, the most remarkable thing I hear from people is that they say that it's simple, it's easy, and they wish they had done it, years ago. Really, I got into nutrition and weight loss. I'm an obesity medicine specialist, an internal medicine specialist first, and then went out to get special training. I'm the past president of the major organization of medical weight loss doctors. And just reflecting on this, I didn't learn much about nutrition in medical school or residency, and that's pretty much the standard case for an American trained physician. I wasn't trained in how to help people lose weight. And so it was those patients that I saw that got me curious. I was studying smoking cessation at the time, helping people quit an addictive substance like nicotine. And I was curious about how to help people lose weight and learned about nutrition. And the first diet that I learned really was the low carb diet. And I have to say that it's always been easy for me. It's always been easy for me to recruit people into studies and teach them, and me metabolically, I've been eating this way for 20 years. And so I just have to say, most people come back, they've tried this diet, that diet. All the times I hear, I've tried everything, nothing's worked. And then I'll say something, well, have you tried a low carb diet or Atkins? And commonly they'll say, well, no, I was told not to do that. And so the number one thing you need to know about doing keto is that it can be easy. It can be simple. It can be the first way to lose weight, and it'll help you lose weight or fix diabetes, all these other things I'll talk about. And you can then eat this way as long as you want, forever. That I just wanted to reflect on that, because if you've been trying to accomplish some sort of lifestyle change, it's been difficult. The dietitian wants you to do something that doesn't work, and that just kind of defies explanation how you can go to a health practitioner and you get taught something and it doesn't work, and you still go back and they still teach you the same thing and they blame you for not doing it well enough. So that's the second thing that you need to know, is that, yes, it can be simple and easy, but, best to do it with people who learn from people who've done it, and learn from people who've, is down the path that you don't want to go down, and they've done it successfully themselves. But then what I do has to work. So this is again, it kind of defines, well, as an internal medicine specialist, when I think about it, I don't have to fix diabetes. I manage it if I'm using medications. And so we're in a medical world now, medical meaning, healthcare itself, where what a doctor, dietitian, a nurse, what we do doesn't really have to work. It can just manage something. And I have to say that's one reason why I gravitated or shifted from ambulatory care, internal medicine as a specialty, is that I didn't want to just palliate disease. I got into medicine because I wanted to fix things. I didn't want to be a surgeon, although they fix things a lot because of the lifestyle, and although I enjoyed surgery as a student, but it's not something I wanted to do. I'm more of a thinker than a cutter. Remember, the Obesity Medicine Association that I'm past president of is not the surgeons, it's the medical doctors who help people lose weight. But it just doesn't have to be difficult. But for me, it has to work. So that you have to understand, if what I do doesn't work, I don't have a job. People won't come back to me. And if you're in an insurance system where people are managing diabetes or giving you medicine, they're hitting their A1C goal, and kind of like the chalkboard, fingers on the chalkboard, when I hear a commercial that manage your diabetes, I'm like, oh no, don't do it. What you want to do is fix it. I'm talking about type 2 diabetes, of course. But so if you've tried everything, nothing's worked, you got to try keto, because it may be the simplest thing that you never tried. And it just, even people who've had weight loss surgery tell me their story, and they've never been taught to do a low carb or keto diet. There's no requirement that you go through this program before getting surgery. you can just go to the surgeon for weight loss and say, I want surgery, and they check a few boxes and go through an evaluation that you can get it. If you're wanting insurance or Medicaid to pay for it, then you have to go through some extra steps for the insurance and Medicaid, Medicare to pay for it. But so what I do has to work, and I'm not a surgeon. I choose to do lifestyle as the signature approach. And when people come to me, I'm blessed because I have a clinic where there are some people who have no idea who I am. They haven't watched any YouTube videos, they haven't Googled me yet, and it's actually kind of refreshing because all I do is teach people what to do, and just using lifestyle. It doesn't have to be hard. Now, what's amazing? Well, there are ways to make it hard, and I'll talk about the internet keto in just a minute. But the other thing you need to know before doing keto is what the amazing things that it does. And if you've been in the low carb keto world, you'll know about dietdoctor.com. Diet Doctor is out of Sweden. I know Andreas Eenfeldt really well. Dr. Eenfeldt, I'd say he's a friend of mine through the years. Been on low carb cruises, but they have a huge internet repository of information now, but it's kind of overwhelming. But if you want to know a lot of stories and documentation of what keto can do, it's there. And so, yes, a lot of people look for keto for obesity or weight loss treatment as the kind of, it's what it's known for. But it actually does so many other things. It's hard for me I can do a whole talk on it. So just the highlights. People now are coming to me to reverse their diabetes. In fact, recently, a young man reversed his own diabetes before coming to see me. And, remember, I think that's fantastic. I'm just a teacher, and this young man got himself off of medications, had lost 50 to 60 pounds. His A1C, which is a number of to mark the diabetes over the last 3 months, was normal. And, I kind of looked at him and said, well, you don't need me. You've already fixed your diabetes. Well, he wanted to get the kind of blessing that he's doing it right and someone to follow him over time. And so the amazing thing is when you cut the carbs really low, which is really the foundation of a keto diet, there are a lot of different ways to do it. And you can learn this way, that way, variations on a theme, so to speak, and it can be very effective for reversing type 2 diabetes. Now, one of my teachers, Dr. Atkins, so to continue my story, is I was intrigued that these two patients of mine lost all this weight and the cholesterol didn't go up in these two cases. So I went to visit the doctors who were using the low carb keto diet. And it was called Atkins Induction for the Atkins books, and for Dr. Atkins in his office, it was called Protein Power by Mike and Mary Dan Eads, who had a practice in the Midwest. It was called the Rosedale Diet by Ron Rosedale, who used it in a clinic. It was called the Bernstein Diet by Dr. Bernstein. So it was called South Beach Diet by Dr. Agatston, who kind of made a low carb, low fat version that mixed together. But the thing that really holds all of these together and it makes it so robust, so powerful, if you will, is lowering the carbs. And that's the theme that I come back to in my teaching. What you can do with that is, reverse obesity or even just overweight. You can maintain your weight through the years. A lot of people will do this because they just feel better on a keto diet. Even healthy people who are active and exercising, if you're a cyclist, you're an endurance athlete, now they're doing a low carb keto diet and even winning races in record time. So there's the whole sidebar on how this can be helpful for even when you're doing strenuous exercise, because all you do is turn your body into a fat burning machine. When you eat carbs, you have to burn carbs. It's the way things work because you don't store carbs. So when you don't eat carbs, you have to burn fat. If you're losing weight on your body, you have plenty of fat there, and that's why you start losing your own body fat. So that's the kind of behind the scenes what's happening. Lifting under the hood, your body turns into a fat burning machine. And if you have fat on your body, it starts using that first. But also in my office, I've made it at Duke now for 15 years in a clinical setting. I kind of use the old general medicine, ambulatory care, VA model that I would take all comers to the office, whether they're healthy, whether they have diabetes, whether they have heart failure, whether they have kidney failure, they're on dialysis, they're online for a heart transplant. So if you're trained in internal medicine, you can treat a wide array of diseases. And now those are uncommon things to be on the heart transplant list, but I've treated people who have an implanted pump because their heart is so bad that they wouldn't be alive without the pump. And it works so well. They're out walking, mowing the lawn. It's pretty amazing. And of course, you have to be very careful, watch the blood thinner and the sodium and the food. So it's a complicated thing, but I practice the best internal medicine that I ever have in my life by talking about the food, by talking about keto as a particular kind of teaching to get the food right. Now the more common things after obesity and diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, which is now thought of, it's a growing consensus. I mean, the thing about medicine is that no one ever agrees on everything. That's why they have consensus conferences, because there's no agreement. They have a meeting and then agree to disagree and agree upon these little things. But metabolic syndrome, which is the triglyceride and HDL in the blood now, that's how you look at it in the blood, is more important than the LDL cholesterol. And so that's how we look at it. We actually reduce cardiometabolic risk, meaning reduce cardiac risk by changing the food. And what's astounding is that this goes against everything we've been teaching. I know that. I mean, I'll explain that. But just one step at a time, get it started. First thing that happens is the hunger goes away. So I even kind of forget to mention that if you're saddled with hunger all the time, this will take the hunger away in a day or two, because you become a fat burning machine and you're not in this carb eating cycle with sugar and sugar addiction for some people. So if you just, it reminds me of this student who came through the office who said he was hungry all his life, every day. Like first thing gets up, hungry, eating all day long. And in a medical school, that's not a good thing because you're often away from food. And just the first couple of days into the keto diet, the hunger was gone. And when I asked her what she'd been eating, or he, doesn't matter, this person had been eating fruit all the time. And fruit makes you hungry. And, you wouldn't know that carbs make you hungry until you stop them all. So if you just stop, say, 9/10 of all the carbs, that 10th, those last remaining potatoes or the berries or some people reduce things down to just one slice of bread or grits in the morning, that can be enough to maintain the hunger and make a keto diet not work. And so, but if you have hunger all the time, this fixes hunger. Probably the sleeper that would astound most people with heartburn, especially refractory heartburn, when the medicines don't even work anymore. Within the first week, almost 100% heartburn is gone. And a lot of people maintain this way of eating because they no longer have the heartburn. And it's heartburn that keeps you up at night. You're on medicine, you're raising the head of the bed, and you still have it. It's from the carbohydrates. It's from the stomach acid from the carbohydrates. The way I can say that is our paper published on that now over 10 years ago said that. So the other important thing to know is that I've been in an academic setting at a university setting now for 30 years at Duke. And what I do has to be supported by science, or, my colleagues within the university setting, and many of them are what's known as the critical appraisal or evidence-based medicine doctors. They, wouldn't let me be around if I was doing something really, really strange or outside what the science supports now. And then having been in a clinical practice sharing patients with other doctors, some of them are not too pleased that the LDL goes up, but I explain to the patient what's going on. And remember, most other doctors still were trained in that old way of looking at the blood cholesterol profile. So yes, it can be simple. The amazing things keto does. Okay, let's see. Polycystic ovary syndrome, a cause of infertility in women, a major cause. And so I've had people go to our Duke fertility treatment clinic. It's very well regarded. They use medications to try to stimulate ovulation to get people pregnant. And I've had people go there, not have success. They come to me, and then they have success, and then the couple gets pregnant within 1 to 2 months, because the change in the hormonal situation internally allows the ovulation to occur. So even, so we've trained a whole cohort of doctors in how to use medications, surgery and medications, not lifestyle. And so that's a fantastic thing. So PCOS, infertility, the other sort of metabolic thing that's causing a lot of problem today is called fatty liver, or non-alcoholic fatty liver, because sometimes with alcoholism you get fatty liver. These are people who are not drinking alcohol. They get fatty liver, and it can get so bad that it can destroy the liver, which is called cirrhosis. And then fortunately you can transplant the liver, although it's a huge endeavor. It's like transplanting the heart, transplanting the liver are much more complicated than transplanting kidneys, one kidney, for example. So fatty liver is gone. Our paper on that is published over 10 years ago. And so it's the carbs, the sugars, the starches in the food that causes the fat in the liver. In fact, that's the first step in a process of distributing fat inside the body that gets into the trouble areas. So you don't want the sugar to be turned into fat in the liver. That's the first step in the what's called pathogenesis, or the description of how disease occurs. So other very intriguing things that I don't have papers on, but I see signals in the office, meaning here and there someone comes in, and I don't have the staff to track everyone down and do case series and case studies. I'd love to do that. In fact, I'm working on the fundraising page for Duke, for my Duke clinic now, so that if you wanted to send $5, $10, $50, you can, because I don't get that kind of support. And so we can look at people who have autoimmune diseases. So things like the GI problems like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, the rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. These are problems that nobody knows really what causes them. And there's a signal among the low-carb keto doctors that's, it's a signal, meaning we don't have formal studies about it, but it's something that I'd like to formalize as time goes on. So it really is just kind of amazing what the keto diet can do. And I know it's not amazing is the word. So Diet Doctor Andreas and his staff pulled out a quote that I had, which was, "It's so unbelievable, people don't believe it." That's still the case we're in. And, when I look back, the way I got into this, and it was unbelievable. It was, this, if you can imagine, 1998, the world was saying, if you eat fat, you'll get heart disease and die, maybe, tomorrow. And the interesting thing is that when I visited other doctors doing this, and there was actually a whole clinical knowledge about how to do this. And when we started our first study, which was published in 2002, it's basically the method that Dr. Atkins had used for 30 years. Dr. Atkins and Jackie Eberstein had developed this method, which was very simple. You hand out a piece of paper, and that's basically what I do today in different forms. All of the food is on one list, so unbelievable, you don't believe it. Meaning unless you go see it in action. And that's what I did. I visited these doctors, Dr. Eads, Dr. Rosedale. Well, no, Dr. Eads had retired. Dr. Rosedale, Dr. Bernstein, Dr. Atkins, and then put together the research. Now, this is 20 years ago. And today I even will offer that a doctor or dietitian, or I've even had a physical therapist, occupational therapist come to my office to learn, because I know there's so many things that it's unbelievable. How can you eat fat and lose fat on your body? Well, we know it's because your body burns it, because you're not eating carbs. How can you fix diabetes? I even was looking at a recent recommendation about what to eat and not to eat for diabetes, and on there it said artificial sweeteners cause diabetes. That's crazy. It's sugar that raises the blood sugar, not sucralose. I mean, these are studies that so anyway, it is unbelievable, and I still offer to have doctors and dietitians and health people. I can't just have Joe Smith from the street come. Occasionally, I've had a reporter come to watch. I think Gary Taubes visited the clinic some years ago before he wrote his main books. But so yeah, it's simple. It's pretty amazing what it can do, and you might be surprised that what you think is just getting older. These aches and pains and the backache and oh, my knee. A lot of these things will get better because there's a inflammation reduction that you really can't measure in a blood test yet. It's a clinical feeling of I feel less inflamed, I have fewer joint pains. And so if you think you're just getting older and haven't tried something like this, give it a try. You'll know in a couple days if the hunger goes away. It's the first thing that happens. And then you'll know in a couple weeks if you feel more energy and if this is a generally healthy and healing process for you. Things like fibromyalgia will get better. I don't have studies about that, but a strong signal among the community of doctors who use keto diets, that's for sure. I want to switch gears to what I have now heard people call, and I like the term, called internet-based keto. And I think I'm going to be giving some talks showing the difference between evidence-based keto and internet-based keto. Now, if you hadn't really been in the low-carb world and you're new to it, you're going to be overwhelmed by all of the information. They're well-intentioned teachers with whiteboards, and generally they're thin young men or women who are teaching you and eating all of this fat. And many of these people have never had a weight loss problem in their life. Many of them have never been in a clinic to see, again, what they say has to work. Like me, if it doesn't work, people don't come back. So I'm confident with my method that, like a pill, if you take this, it will work. It has that much research behind it. Now, I can't go home and make you take the pill. And that's a lot of the work we do, help you figure out how to change the food and take the pill, so to speak, which is just changing food. There are no pills involved, just to make sure you understand that. So internet keto, which is, products here, products there, products here, products there. Not all of them are like drink ketones, but some of them are. I'll have every week someone come in and say, what about that keto pill? And what about those there are keto pills over the counter now that people are kind of sucked into doing? No studies I'm aware of on these keto pills. No studies I'm aware of on the ketone drinks that you drink. Yes, you can raise ketone levels, but I need to have some kind of science wrapped around using it in the real world with real people. What does it do? Even the apple cider vinegar idea, sure, it can reduce your hunger, but I want to see it in the context of a low-carb keto diet before I'm going to recommend it. I did a YouTube on that. You can watch my YouTube about apple cider vinegar, and the studies that have been done have not been in low-carb diets, which makes me even a little concerned, because the one time I saw someone who used so much apple cider vinegar, he didn't eat anything. So he didn't do a balanced, well-formulated keto low-carb diet. He did apple cider vinegar diet. And now we know there are lots of diets that can work. The TV show, reality show, Naked and Afraid diet works. I mean, you can just watch it on reality TV, but it's not safe. It's not healthy. And so remember, my job as a doctor, trained as an obesity medicine specialist, is I want to do something that is safe and effective, tasty, something you can do for a long time. And so one of the main differences between internet keto and evidence-based keto is you don't have to have all these different products. You don't have to have gobs of vitamins and electrolyte supplements and all that. Now, a lot of those things are not harmful, but you're spending, in some cases, a lot of money on these things that you don't really need if you learn how to do it without all of those things. So beware of internet keto. In fact, when I'm teaching in my office, I use the internet, pull up some trusted websites, and there are a bunch. And even on some of the videos, there'll be this ad now for some product, and I have to kind of, put this isn't part of the program, this keto, whatever. In fact, there's a saying that if it says great for keto diets at the grocery store, avoid it. Don't take it. Don't have it. What's been studied, the evidence-based keto is a low-carb, real food diet where you eat, what you like until you're satisfied of the meat, poultry, fish and shellfish, and eggs. There's a limited amount of vegetables and spinach or leafy greens because those things have carbs. And then there's a limit to the big ticket fat items like dairy, like cheese, cream, mayonnaise, those sorts of things have to have some sort of break on it, especially if you've had difficulty stopping the consumption of those things in the past. It's very easy to overconsume cheese, cream, mayonnaise, things like that. And so we explicitly limit those things. And when you're not hungry, which happens in just a day or two, it's not hard to limit those things. If you're doing kind of a quasi low carb, but your hunger's not gone and you have free reign, someone says, oh, you can have all the butter you want. I've seen people come in not losing weight because they're eating more fat in the butter or the cream than their body can burn. You can even gain weight on a wrongly taught keto diet, even when you're trying to lose weight on the keto diet. So just beware of and know what the source of the information is. Follow someone who's reputable and has been doing it a while, and you'll improve your chances of having it work. The younger you are, it seems to be the more flexible you can be, the more active you are, the more flexible you can be. So the converse to that is the older you are, the more sedentary you are, the stricter you have to be on the diet, on the carb level. I just wanted to sort of bring up to date. I am an author on the New Atkins for a New You, and this was published in 2010. It's a great book. The section on protein and fat, written by Finney and Volek, who are the other co-authors, is par none. It's fantastic because they are really the nutritional PhD experts. And the reason I'm the first author on here is I'm the MD in a clinic at Duke and still am. But the New Atkins is good. And I did a couple books with Jimmy Moore. Well, he did most of it, and I helped with the medical safety of it, cholesterol clarity and keto clarity. In fact, I'm using this now as I'm envisioning something to explain cholesterol in a bigger way. But then to bring you up to date, the best book, if you want my information, is this one, which is End Your Carb Confusion by Westman and Amy Berger. That's me, Eric Westman, and it was published in December. It does have a keto level diet, but it also has low glycemic and not a very low carb diet as a guide, because some people don't need that. So now we're in that phase of how do we increase the information to as many people as possible? Well, there's some people that are never going to not live a day without the peach, and maybe they don't have to. So we actually have a table that you go through with check boxes to determine what level of carbs we think you should start out in. Of course, we still recommend a low-carb keto diet the way we teach it at the Duke Clinic if you're trying to lose weight or reverse diabetes. So a keto diet like we teach at the clinic is still a great place to start for anyone, but especially if you have diabetes, PCOS, obesity, you're trying to lose weight. Last thing I'd like to just mention is the myths and fears. So back in 1998, so 22 years ago, 3 years now, I can't do the math. Depends what time of the year it was, I guess, in 98. There were all these concerns about it's going to be bad for the heart. It's going to be bad for the kidneys. It's going to be bad for the cholesterol. It goes against all the guidelines. And so when I visited doctors who were using this, eyes wide open, I asked, well, have you seen this? Have you seen problems? And, the messaging, what I got back was no. And then I, realized that independent research had to be done because these doctors were in a practice getting paid to do this, and they might not tell me everything or tell their patients everything. But the fears that I hear people say today are the same ones that were mentioned 20 years ago, even 30 years ago, that have never come true. So, and just about everything I say has been published in a paper. If you ask me, I can find it for you. And sometimes you have to pay $30 for it if it's a journal that does that. But last fall, I wrote in a paper that the burden of proof is on other people to show that keto and low carb is bad, because we have all of this research through the years that says that it's good. And so if you're going to call out a keto diet as being bad, you have to prove it. I mean, it's to the point of where it's like a smear in a political campaign. You can say anything, and if there were big companies behind it, then I'm sure they would go after if you said Coca-Cola was killing people loudly, and you didn't have evidence to show that, I'm sure Coca-Cola would go after those people and say, you can't say that unless you have evidence. That's called libel if you are saying something that you have no backing up for it. And so, there's so much information now all around the world about how good a low carb, evidence-based keto diet is. The last remaining thing that, I deal with almost every day in my office is the concern about the blood cholesterol. And, I had a professor come to me recently and she said, aren't you frustrated? You're teaching this, people aren't listening. And I just looked and said, you teach math? Yeah, that's not really what it was. And I said, are you frustrated because someone comes in and they don't know math and then you teach them and at the end they know the math? And she said, well, of course not. That's my job. And I said, well, that's my job, is to teach people. So it all depends on your point of view. So I have a lot of teaching to do about cholesterol. And the old way to look at it is total cholesterol and LDL. And that is fading away, although it's in guidelines and doctors will follow guidelines, and nurse practitioners and PAs, especially the physician extenders. But the new way to look at cholesterol, and that same panel that you get, is to look at the triglyceride and the HDL, not the total and the LDL. And in fact, the more I go about this, the focus is wrong. I mean, we ought to be the big ticket items to reduce cholesterol, to reduce cardiovascular disease is not to focus on LDL cholesterol. And there was a recent paper that came out that looked at all of these things independently. And the strongest signal, what you do not want to have, because it causes heart disease in so many people, is diabetes. So you want to fix diabetes. Don't worry about the cholesterol, fix the diabetes. And I know so many people come to me on drugs because they have diabetes and they have cholesterol drugs. Well, that's only because you have diabetes. So fix the diabetes. You don't need the cholesterol drug. And then you want to have blood pressure control. So diabetes, blood pressure, smoking is still one of the highest risk factors for developing heart disease. And then when it comes to looking at the cholesterol in the blood, it's not the LDL that's the most powerful thing. It's something called the metabolic syndrome, which is the triglyceride and the HDL and the abdominal circumference being elevated and the blood pressure being a little elevated, but you don't have high blood pressure, and the blood glucose a little bit elevated, but you don't have diabetes. So it's a shift that's happening. In fact, the researchers in this book talked all about it. In fact, the brilliance of this book is that Jimmy Moore just talked to the people who did podcasts with him and got them to write out what was in the podcast. So Cholesterol Clarity will give you all of the information you need about the shift from total and LDL to triglyceride and HDL. And just this week, last week, I asked, do you want, is your other doctor, so the conversation was like, well, my other doctor says this is bad, and the LDL went up. And I said, well, I teach a lot of people around the world. Sometimes doctors don't know. And the person said, well, this is even a Duke doctor. And I said, well, that's okay. They probably haven't learned it. So I kind of said, is this person worth teaching? And they said, well, yeah, I like the doctor. So I'm going to write the doctor an email and just explain that everything else has gotten better. The triglyceride is down, the HDL is up, and this little change in the LDL is not something that's worth persisting about. And a lot of doctors need to be brought up to speed about another way to do things besides giving medication. And remember, that's one of the themes from the beginning here, is that we taught a whole generation of doctors to use medication, not effective lifestyle change. And if they've used lifestyle change in the past, it wasn't effective. So the doctor has lost confidence that their patients can actually change their lifestyle. They don't know that it's simple and easy. And most people will say, I should have done this years ago, but I was afraid that it might be hard, or I was afraid it might be bad for me. And so I want to dispel those myths just as best I can. So it's simple, does a lot of things other than just fixing obesity, diabetes as well, polycystic ovary syndrome, fatty liver. There's a big difference between internet keto and evidence-based keto. And I'm not a big fan of things that aren't studied and effective and, big effect size in the studies that are done. Sometimes you'll see someone point out a study, but it was like this important. It wasn't very important at all. So, that's this way, I think, is what you need to know before you start keto in April 2021. And next week, I'll talk more about how you can join in the things that we're doing now at Adapt Your Life, which includes the book that I showed and also a masterclass. I'll go into detail about that next week. So let me just go through some of the questions here. Let's see, should we be weighing and measuring? So it depends what you're trying to accomplish. The method we have is the measurement is in terms of volume of the food that you're having and feeling full. So there's some measurement of the foods that you eat, but not like putting it on a scale, like measuring those sorts of things. I don't have people use apps. And I mean, you can, but the hunger goes away. You don't need to write things in there to control what you eat because you're just not hungry. And if someone's using this for weight loss, then you'll want to measure the weight once a week, not every day, 10 times a day, which I know can happen. So is there a link between keto causing AFib? No, not that I'm aware of. So there are a lot of things that happen on a keto diet. There are a lot of things that happen when you're not on a keto diet. I think AFib is one of those things. There was a study a couple of years ago that was the headline. And when you got to the detail, these people weren't on a keto diet. They put all of the people who are under, I think, a 30% carb for the day into the low carb framework. And so, no, I don't think so. In fact, I was reviewing the recent paper from last winter, 2020, that if you look at what the heart uses for fuel, the heart sucks up the fats, fatty acids and ketones. Fatty acids, ketones, lactate, the amino acids. The heart does not want glucose. I mean, it keeps it out. So, and then there's growing interest in looking at ketones as a therapy for heart failure. And you'll see some studies that are coming out there. And they're not to the point where I would sign off and say, here, you do this, it will help your heart failure. But the cardiologists are starting to study this, which is fascinating. Let's see. Penny asks, are organ meats crucial on keto? I've tried so many times, but just can't do it. I don't eat organ meats that are no, so that's not crucial. I think that depending how you do it, you want to have a well-formulated version of a keto diet. If you're not having organ meats, you'll want to have some veggies. And the doctors who do obesity medicine, help people lose weight, have kind of signed off. We'll just give everyone a multivitamin just to be, so we don't have to worry about it. And so that, if you're at all worried about it, just take your store brand multivitamin, and then you don't have to worry about having organ meats. The American doctors need to learn this, absolutely. And let's see, should we weighing, measuring? Yeah, what I've learned is that just about everyone responds to page 4. Page 4 is the list of foods we use. It's also now in a color-coded version, and you can get page 4 at drwestmanonline.com, or you can get it in the masterclass that we're going to have. But a lot of people need the coaching, the sort of, what am I doing wrong, the mindset change, the paradigm shift. And so one of the things we're doing with the masterclass is we have a Facebook group where people can get started, and it'll help you if you're worried about I don't know what to do. You're thrown in with hundreds of other people just getting started like you. And we've had a great experience doing that now. And there's so many different nuances of things that can, I was asking someone, they said that I'm doing keto, it's not working. I was on a radio show, and the other moderator was there, and we're talking, and I say, so the quickest thing I can do to really know if someone's doing a keto or low carb, high fat diet or low carb diet is to ask them what they're eating. Just, I don't ask this, what you're not eating. I'm just tell me what you're eating. And this person on the radio, I have headphones, and says, well, in the morning, I just have fruit on my cereal, little berries. And even the radio announcer was on the other end going, that's not keto, or it was Banting, because we were in South Africa. We were in Cape Town on that, or Joburg, one of the two. But anyway, so the first thing is you got to get the food right, and make sure you have good resource for that. Let's see, Toms. Yeah, Toms is great. Hello from all over. Thank you. Let's see. How do you calculate moderate protein? Chronometer says, so Chronometer is an app that I don't really recommend, but you can use it if you want. It sets, you're eating based on an app. That's a principle that I don't want you to do. We don't know exactly how much protein the human body needs, let alone the variability that we have. Everyone is different. So if you're going to eat up to the protein level in an app, or the fat level, or the ratios and all that, it might not work for you. You might be over consuming things. Of course, those for, you lost 70 pounds in 17 months, fantastic. So the Chronometer was helpful for you, I guess, which is great. There are several other apps that that's checking the ketone levels. You don't have to do that either, but there are a bunch of meters available. The Keto Mojo is pretty simple, and you can check glucose and ketones with that. There's carnivore, OMAD. Yeah, there's sort of a sub bar of keto, low carb, high fat was just eating meat. The saying is, well, those are plants. That's what my food eats. And very interesting. There's some remarkable stories of amazing health improvements. I'm not sure that it's any better though than doing an evidence-based low carb, high fat, or keto diet. So I'm waiting on the studies to be done, and I'm trying to support as best I can. And those studies, yes, I even gave money to the Sean Baker and his group to study the people who are doing the keto version called carnivore, but I can't recommend it yet. I'm watching and wanting the studies to be done though. Same thing with intermittent fasting. I'm not aware of the studies that have been done that support its massive use, although it's very effective, no question. The less you eat, the more you lose. And I use that if someone's stuck on the paradigm mindset, and then I'll assign them to watch an episode of Naked and Afraid to just get into your head that you lose weight by eating less, not more. And I mean, that's a internet keto teaching that gets a lot of people into trouble. So let's see, losing 40 pounds in 9 months is fantastic. So it's important to know the context, the comparison. If you compare yourself to the Facebook postings and things, you're only getting the best folks. The people who go back to the high school reunions generally are the successful people. So in my office, with a well-formulated, adequate protein sort of diet, people lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. That's across diabetes and obesity, other health problems. So if you're 1 to 2 pounds per week, that's 50 to 100 per year. That's, no pills, no products. It's great, effective weight loss, and it's safe. So I think you're right on track. A friend of mine, Casey Durango, Go Keto with Casey, in Greensboro, North Carolina, just down the road, about 45 miles from me in Durham, probably right here. Well, anyway, she has a saying that, if someone comes in and they say to me, I only lost 4 pounds this month, she has to twist it around and says, well, what if you had gained 4 pounds? Would you say that it was only 4 pounds? Of course not. So, but the rate of weight loss that I see is generally 1 pound or 2 per week. But in some people, for people who are recalcitrant, really, you're trying to put the burden of all of the weight loss on the food. Sometimes just 1/2 pound a week, 1/4 pound a week is enough for me to be happy. And so is that person, because nothing else had worked. So the rate of weight loss is a range, and it sounds like you're right in that range. And I hope you're fixing the diabetes. Well, the funny word you use, I'm 57, diabetic. Arwen, if you have type 2 diabetes, you don't have to be diabetic. So in fact, in the obesity medicine diabetes world, we don't say type 2 diabetic or obese person anymore. We say individual affected by type 2 diabetes, an individual affected by obesity, because we don't want you to think that that's you, and you bring on the persona of someone being sick and, I'm a diabetic. And now if you're type 1, you probably will have diabetes forever, since that's an insulin deficiency. But let's see, Liz says, husband is keto, stopping chewing tobacco, been chewing gum, tired of gum. Any suggestions for sugar-free candy? Well, the one that's lowest in carbs. So you want to just go and the one you like. So that's I learned pretty quickly. I don't say, here, try this, it's delicious, and because you might not like it, right? So there are all sorts of. In fact, we bartered that they would have one Russell Stover in the evening. Now the brand doesn't matter to me, but they narrowed it down, limited to just one little, 2 carb, 3 carb piece of candy at night. So I don't know any particular brand. I know a lot of people will go out and get Lily's chocolate, and you can tweak the micro carbs. The carblets a little bit by always having dark chocolate, but I don't like dark chocolate. And people say, oh, dark chocolate is so good. I don't like it. So I get milk chocolate. So, or sometimes if I'm, feeling bold, remember I've been doing this 20 years, I'll get the box of Andes mints and open up one Andes mint. I know exactly how many carbs are in there, and I can stop most of the time with just one. Once a carb addict, always a carb addict, I'm afraid. And let's see, kidney transplant. I'm a type 2 diabetes. Absolutely, you can do keto, and I've had people post kidney transplant with the kidney already deteriorating because of the diabetes. So, but you want to do it with a doctor. So these are the guardrails of safe use of a keto diet. I wouldn't do a diet like this. It's effective. It's very powerful. If you have diabetes and on medication without the doctor or healthcare assistants if you're not sure what to do. So I have to reduce insulin by 50% on the first day that someone starts this if they have a blood sugar in the normal range. So you have to be very careful. You might get a low blood sugar on the first day you do this if you don't have someone to help you to reduce the insulin and the other medications. So, but as a general rule, yes, I've treated people who are post-kidney transplant and still have diabetes, but you don't want to have diabetes, right? I mean, that's the number one risk factor for heart disease above all others. Let's see. Recently diagnosed with lipedema. I've heard it's difficult to use. Lipedema gets better with a keto diet. There's a group highly recommend called lipedema. Oh gosh, it's Catherine Co. And I'm going to Google this. If someone doesn't put it up here already. It's let's see. I'm not going to get it. Catherine Co. Leslin Keith at the lymphedema group. Catherine Co. SEO. Just Google lipedema. Catherine Catherine Co. And lipedema seminars, lipedema symposiums. One of those things. One of those names, and they'll help you figure out. A lot of my patients who have lipedema and lymphedema still use the compression gadgets and things. They can be helpful, but you can lose weight and improve the lipedema, even though, a lot of the internet is not aware of that. And there's still the kind of, there's nothing you can do, but the lymphedema seminars or symposium, it's a word, something like that. It's funny, I can't remember that. Catherine's going to be mad at me if she finds out. Yes, I wish all the doctors would get on board. Well, if you had one gift to a doctor who's skeptical, give them the case for keto. It's just the story of other doctors, how they got involved. It's the story of Dr. Sue Wolver, who visited my office at the beginning of her transformation. Or get the Gary Taubes Good Calories, Bad Calories, which is the geeky, scientific tome that really was a pioneering work. I'd rather fix things and then to just mask them or manage them with medication. I'm tired of making excuses for medications. It's now I'll use medicine if they're absolutely needed, but if you don't need them, why use them? What about keto and hypothyroid? It's fine to do keto if you have low thyroid. Of course, you want to make sure your thyroid medicine, if you're on it, is optimized. Get all of the levels of TSH, free T3, free T4, and even maybe antibodies. And a thyroid specialist, or especially keto-friendly ones, will know which tests to check. And thank you for the kind comments. Let's see, low carb was the last ditch after countless nutritionists and doctors. Yeah, it can be so simple. Please don't be confused by internet keto today. How can I convince my daughter, because she's 27, and have you heard of Instagram? So there's an age, I don't know exactly the age, where in my office when I'm teaching someone, instead of doing the old lesson with me sitting around the table, of course you can watch that on YouTube, I'll spend the time to try to find the Instagram person, the keto influencer that this person resonates with. So you might tell your daughter to just look on Instagram for keto, and some of the people are kind of over the top. They've already gotten to their goal and they're at the gym, all sculpted. Other people are on their path, and they post food of what they're eating. And so I try to teach in the mode or the method that people will learn best. And if she's not on Instagram, you can always go to a reliable source like the information that we have at Adapt Your Life. Let's see. I saw you seeing you for the first time. Great. Hope to see you again. And she wants to see the results. Well, the first it takes a day or two for an individual to feel that the hunger's gone. And that's pretty amazing. And the the cravings go away pretty quickly. I'll never forget the first person who said, but learning the class is, but my fruit, what am I going to do? My bread. And I would have people around the table to just kind of, learn, but then also sort of grieve the loss. In a day or two, those cravings are gone. It's amazing. So for just about everyone. So the fear of, what will I do? You just got to give it a try. Let's see. Yes, there is a plan for an audiobook for enterocarb confusion. Stay tuned. Let's see. My doctor said I need to lose weight, but he didn't tell me how. Well, I know that's kind of the reality, that doctors don't get trained in how to help people lose weight. I went out to get special training, and that's all I do. So I understand that. So at Duke University in Durham, doctors send their patients to me, other doctors. They refer them to the specialist. See how that works? And then, yes, we do focus on low carb and keto because we helped generate the initial studies. We're known as a teaching center for the low carb keto diet at Duke. Doesn't believe in a diet. Well, do you believe in gravity? So there's enough science around gravity that, try jumping off a sofa. I mean, you're going to go to the ground. So if you do it right, this will work. Let's see. Can I do keto with congestive heart failure? Yes, with monitoring. And so in general, you want to carry over the restrictions on sodium, vitamin K containing foods, things like phosphate, if you have kidney, heart failure, that sort of thing. So you'll want to talk to someone who understands how to merge a low carb keto diet with those restrictions that you already have. Let's see. Hands and feet tingle, though my gout's gone and my goal no longer type 2. So can I develop neuropathy? I don't think so. I mean, there are some other things we think about with neuropathy other than diabetes, but it could be gout, it could be some other vitamin issue, and there are. It kind of depends how long, Christine, you've been doing a low carb or keto diet. There may be some transition symptoms. Sometimes I'll hear people complain of something getting worse before it gets better. And actually, diabetic neuropathy is something that can be there years before you have diabetes, which is kind of unbelievable. But so I would just keep doing what you're doing. See, reverse type 2 diabetes, fantastic. Rosedale warns about eating too much protein. Not really, Hank, Aaron. Thank you for saying. I know Dr. Rosedale, I know Ron really well, and I want some science. I want some, so there's a lot of theories. Or you can talk about mTOR, and you can talk about eating for your mitochondria, but I need studies in people. Ideally, randomized trials. Of course, if you have a problem and nothing else has helped it, and keto has, I don't need many, case studies of that. But I do need something beyond just having Ron worry about it. Dr. Rosedale, okay? And you don't just eat with mTOR in mind. I mean, until it's proven really it's a thing in people, and for a lot of people, they just worry about that now. So sorry. I really like Dr. Rosedale. He was a big thinker, helped me think through lots of things that I was coming to grips in early on. But then, that's just my position is I need some data, and yes, it might work, it might be better, but I'm not going to sign off on it until I get to that certain level. Let's see. Can you have bradycardia on anticoagulation? Is keto safe? Yes. With monitoring, again, if you're on anticoagulation medicine where you have to limit the vitamin K containing leafy greens, you want to keep that limitation and monitor it as you change the diet. If you have bradycardia and you're followed by a physician, if you're on medication, some medications cause bradycardia, you want to make sure you're not over-medicated at the get-go. I would make sure your doctor kind of signs off, yes, you can do this before you do it, though. And you come through as Facebook user, so sorry I can't address you personally. And let's see, very few medical conditions that would limit you. In fact, I don't really know of any. Dr. Yancey and I were asked to write the chapter on the contraindications and exclusions for doing a keto diet. And if you do it based on real foods and you're just lowering carbs to a ketogenic level, we didn't really find any situation where you couldn't do it without some monitoring, of course. But so I have to be very careful speaking to all of you that many of you are on medications. It's, something like 50% of Americans are on medicines, even over a certain age, even more than that. So you have to be careful about the medicine becoming too strong very quickly, even on the first day. So that's why you need to know that before you get started, not to do it if you're on medicine unless your doctor's helping you. So what about almond flour, allulose, monk fruit? Yeah, I don't allow almond flour at first on the prescription strength keto diet that I use. It's just a little too high and it's easy to overconsume. Sugar substitutes are fine. You just have to limit them. So our method of using total carbs, not net carbs, limits the amount of sugar, alcohols, and all those other sweeteners because you count them in your daily total. Let's see, you'll be in the class starting April, fantastic, and have chronic reflux for over 10 years, disappeared with a week of starting keto. Yeah, Sharon, thanks for that. It's just kind of totally missed by doctors who just prescribe medicines. And if you've been following the heartburn story, some of the medicines that were used for years are now thought to be implicated in causing cancer, some of the heartburn medicines. So, and that's something I learned in a study section is called, where we around other people reviewing grants. There was a PhD pharmacologist who taught me that, show me a drug that just does one thing and I'll show you a new drug that hasn't been fully tested, because over time, most drugs are not just specific to one thing. They have other side effects in the body or other effects that aren't side effects. So kidney transplant, I do low carb, but don't go into ketosis. I'm not worried about ketosis, even after a kidney transplant, as long as you're following a program, feeling well. If you want to get a keto mojo or precision extra to watch the ketone levels, just so that you're not going too high, some people do that. Let's see, desire to research autoimmune. Yeah, Jenny, that's so many things to study, And it was at one of the ketone or keto fairs that I saw the picture of someone with rheumatoid arthritis, showing me resolution of it by picture with her knuckles. Problem there is some of these other medicines that have been developed are very strong and put these autoimmune diseases into remission. So you can get symptomatic relief, the management of these problems with the medication, but it doesn't fix the underlying, what's causing that inflammation. Let's see. Yeah, rice cakes. I never liked rice cakes. I mean, unless there was like this much peanut butter on it. Let's see. What are my chances of success? Good. Yeah, even middle of menopause, no thyroid, no gallbladder. Yeah. So, Sally, give it a go. And if you need help next week, I'm going to talk about the masterclass. You can sign up. There's a small fee for it, but we'll help you in a Facebook group for 3 weeks to make sure you get started right. We're opening that up next week. So I didn't want to talk too much about that tonight. Have fatty liver, scared about diabetes, Yeah, well, did the Atkins book and felt great. Yeah, this is what I teach is very similar to what was called Atkins induction. That's the first phase of the Atkins diet. Because remember, I went to visit Dr. Atkins and I said, what do you do? The twist, though, when I met Dr. Atkins and Dr. Eads and Dr. Rosedale and Dr. Bernstein, is that they used that induction level, what we call the keto list of foods. They used it for years if needed. But in the books, it said only do it for 2 weeks. So if you're going to use prescription strength keto, that means doing it for as long as you need. MCT and butter, yeah, you don't need that stuff. Especially if you're trying to lose fat off your body, don't add in fats and oils. That's only going to slow things down. Maybe even not work at all for you. Let's see. Excellent. Do fake sugars trigger inflammation? If it does, it's not in everyone, and so that's one of those things that don't see much research on it. So you go by clinical. So in a clinic, like you go see someone and they talk to you. If it's the old saying of doctor, it hurts when I go and you do some weird arm thing, and the doctor says, well, don't do that. So there are things that are going to be unique to you. Well, I don't like eggs. Well, then don't have eggs. So that's the beauty of something like this. And I don't know of any benefit that any sweetener has other than giving you something sweet, something tasty. If there was a study that said sucralose made you live longer, that would be good to know. And there are a lot of keto teachers who are they're nitpicking about the darndest things that I don't worry about, because remember, I'm in an office with patients and in Durham, North Carolina, where there's a wide range of where people shop and eat. And I even had someone who ate at McDonald's and taught me that he could lose weight in a healthy manner just by eating off the dollar menu at McDonald's. So I'm not a big food quality stickler, but if you can afford that and you want to do that, great. But it's not necessary. Great. Well, I think next week I'm going to talk about the masterclass, give you more details, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Monday night. So I'll give you more detail on that. Tonight really was just about what you need to know about keto today. And Tulip, Dr. Jeff Gerber is a keto-friendly doctor in Denver. Ask Jeff Gerber, Gerber, who a good cardiologist is in that area. I don't know off the top of my head. Excellent. I'll try to, if I haven't gotten to all the questions, I'll try to get to them. But because this is streaming into so many different places, it's hard to catch every question. I'm sorry if I didn't get to yours this time. But the last question I see popped out of me: how long does it take to see an improvement in triglycerides? Just a matter of weeks. And fatty liver, a couple months. So our studies were out to 6 months, and the fatty liver was resolved. But the triglyceride change on a keto diet is very fast in just about everyone. How is acidity? Okay, last question. How is acidity removed? God only knows. Nobody really knows. So you go back to Greg Austin, Austin, and Eric Westman, Westman. You go to PubMed, you search those two names. There were 2 studies that we did together ages ago, and they were pH probes, which are these little tubes put in the stomach that checks the acidity, and monitored by the pH probes, the acidity goes down. So nobody knows why. So give it a shot. That's really the only way to know. And you'll know in a day or two for things like heartburn, hunger, things like that. Thanks for your results there on the side. It's always great to hear them, and other people need to know. It's inspiring to other people to have you chime in like that. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next week, 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. and we'll talk about the masterclass in more detail. And hopefully it may be something you want to check out. We've had 2 rounds of the Keto Made Simple, 1 round of the Stall Slayer. It's just ending this week, another masterclass at Adapt Your Life Academy. And I'll give you all the details next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye now.